Hello, Michael Worth here with Worth Wild Leather. Today, we're going to be doing a custom holster for a Springfield 1911, a beautiful firearm. And if I have people in the chat that are watching this, leave a comment in the chat, and this holster will be a giveaway for somebody, and we will go from there. So please, by all means, leave comments in the chat. I will respond. If you have questions about the holster as I'm making it, please leave comments in the chat and I will get to them as I can. Sit back, enjoy. I anticipate this stream to last approximately 2 hours, and some of that's going to be because of the hand stitching. When I get to the stitching part of it, just bear with me or come back afterwards and view the whole stream. And hey, Freedom Bell, how you doing? But let's get to it. Show you the process. Gonna have to excuse my technical work here. I'm working off of the webcam, and the lighting is not exactly the best. So I'm in here by myself, so we're gonna have to work with this just a little bit here. Alright, now that we got that going. Alrighty, first thing, we got our 1911. Always make sure any firearm that you're handling is not loaded, no magazine. With the 1911, got to make sure the safety's off. Check it, nothing, and then you can release the hammer. It's going to be a right-handed holster. I like using poster board as my pattern because it's a little bit stiffer than printer paper, and you'll be able to trace the pattern onto the leather a whole lot better. So I like a forward cant. It's easier for the draw. So rotate your pistol slightly. Doesn't have to be a 45-degree angle or anything like that. I just rotate it till it's about natural for me. Regular pen. Trace the pistol all the way around. I know holsters don't cover the pistol grip or anything like that, but I like tracing it all the way around. That way on the back piece of leather for the holster, you make sure you get enough that covers the end of the pistol so you don't got the thumb guard or the sides or the hammer that's exposed and poking you. So we have our tracing. Next we need to know how wide the pistol is, so I just slip it up on its slide. Trace, put my 2 marks on there. Grab me a small square. Take my measurement. We're at 7/8 of an inch. So we're going to want to split that in half and actually add just a little bit more to it. So we're going to run right about 3/8 of an inch is what we want. When you have that mark, run just a dotted line around it. And this is actually going to be your stitch line. That you put on here. And this, depending upon how you want your holster, if you want it super tight as in barely fitting, you can take it a little bit more than half those 2 lines I made up there. And that will make it tighter. If you want it not quite so tight, easier of a draw, You can make it a little bit bigger than half that. The tighter that you make this, the more detail that you can press in to the leather. Okay. That's the stitch line for the holster. Now we got to put the wings on it and also belt loops. We wanted the forward cant. Take your square, square it up to the table along with the paper. Now my concealed carry belts are 1.5 inches wide, which is what this square is. You are going to want to add 1 inch to 1.5 inches to this cut line here. I'm going to go ahead and add 1.5 inches to it, and that will give your belt loops or wings the strength to hold your pistol. From there, we need a very important piece of equipment because nobody likes squared edges. I'm trying to find, oh, there it is. A quarter. Round off your edge. And then what we're going to do is we need this back piece to be nice and rounded as well. So you need to round off what's gonna eventually work its way up here to the top. When you're making these patterns, you don't have to have expensive stencils or all these expensive tools. They help, but you can turn around and just use some of the normal stuff around your house. And now, if that's the stitch line, as in this is where I'm going to be stitching, we need a little bit of leather just on the outside of that, because we can't stitch on the edge of the leather. Wouldn't be nothing for the stitching to hold on to. So I'm going to add about a 1/4 inch, and that's the cut line. Nice and rounded. And that is going to be the whole pattern for the holster. Now, you can turn around and do different things with this pattern, add overlays or inlays or whatever. All that stuff is entirely up to you. Got a couple of viewers out there. Don't be shy in the chat. Now, earlier when I said you don't need a pistol grip to make a holster, as you can see, I'm getting ready to cut the pistol grip off from the tracing. Don't need it. There's the mold that we will need for what is going to be a holster for a very beautiful gun. Now, we are ready to put our pattern to leather. Now, there's some people that say, don't use the top grain of the leather when you're tracing because it leaves mark on the finished product. When you finish this out, if you do it properly and use the tools that you're supposed to, there will be no marks left over. So, put that more under the camera there. this is not an inside the waistband holster. For something like that, what you can do is actually get rid of the wings, and where you make the seam line and the cut line, just take it straight up, and then this top piece of leather, you'd put a belt clip on it, and then you could use it as an inside the waistband holster. But using this type of leather right here for an inside the waistband holster, it's going to be a little stiff. It'd be like carrying around a really thick wallet inside your waistband. You probably want something a little more softer and supple. Say something that's kind of like this, kind of more of a garment grade type leather. At least my opinion. If you want a stiffer holster for inside the waistbands, yeah, you just cut off the wings there, put a clip on the outside of it, a belt clip. I actually don't have any. Oh, there's one right there. Put one of those clips on it, and then you could clip it. In this right here, when you're tracing onto leather, is where using poster board or cardstock comes in. If you're using just regular paper on this part right here, could you imagine how easy that would bend and mess up your lines? Okay, that one's cut. That is the back piece. To get the front piece, it's very, very simple. You no longer need this piece that covers the back side of the hammer and the thumb guard. Cut it off. That's going to be the front piece. Now just trace it around again. By doing it like this, you are ensuring that you have two matching pieces of leather. What I like doing with my patterns, even though I cut it off, I could still use it. Just put it up there, match the lines, still trace it. So what I'll do is I'll take those two pieces of the pattern, take my little hole punch, punch a hole in it, put one of these paper brads through it, and then write what it is. Springfield 1911. Now, I know that if I get another Springfield 1911 in, I can just pull this out. I already got the pattern made. Go straight to leather. Now what we're going to do, yeah, you're correct there, Freedom Bell. Most 1911s are not exactly, or full-size 1911s are not inside the waistband carry. They are more of a belt carry. You need, oh, it's not the Commander edition. It's is it the micro for the 1911? The compact 1911? Those would be good for an inside the waistband carry. Just make the leather a little bit smaller and easier to work with as we get. There's our two pieces. Very easy to keep them identified. One has a piece for the thumb guard and the hammer and the sights cover, and the other is the front piece. Now, before I talked about inlays and overlays and all that stuff, you could add leather to the outside of this in any shape or anything that you want. You could tool it, anything, add texture to it, anything you want to this outside piece. You could even cut out a piece and add leather on the back side for an inlay to give you a two-tone depth look. That'll be something that I can cover in another video at another time. Where'd my straight edge go? Oh, well, got another one. I lose these things all the time. Hey, Freedom Bell, also, those pictures that you sent me of that shoulder holster I made you, I actually picked up 2 orders today for shoulder holsters because of that. How long to break it in for smooth draw, low friction? I really can't answer that one. I don't know. Most of the time, reason why I can't answer that one is I try to make these holsters just as tight, the form-fitted ones, just as tight as I can. That way, in most cases, I know unfortunately it didn't work out with your shoulder holster, but in most cases I don't have to add a retention strap. But as far as a smooth draw goes, that right there should come right out the gate with it. Once you get used to the stiffness of the holster. If you don't trust yourself using a utility knife to cut those lines out, they do make leather shears. They're rather inexpensive. I've tried them, and they're not really what I prefer. To answer your question, Freedom Bell, on the back side of this leather, these right here are really good pieces. They're nice and smooth themselves, so friction on this one should be next to non-existent. This should be ready to go straight out the gate. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a edge beveler. This is a number 4, so it's going to take a pretty aggressive edge. See how there's some pen mark around it? This right here will get rid of all that. What we're going to do, put the edge beveler on there, and it just does exactly what the name implies. Puts a little bevel on that edge. But also by doing this, look at how those pen marks are gone. I've seen some videos where there's people that can go all the way around this thing and not break the string of leather that they took off. I am not that good. That piece is done. Now, seeing that piece is going to be on top of this one, I do not want to put a very sharp edge bevel on this piece here because we need those pieces to meet together. So, we're going to get out a number 2 edge beveler. The smaller the number, the smaller the bevel. And we're going to... This right here is pretty much just taking off that pen mark. It's really not doing much else other than that. Okay, now the piece that's going to be exposed up here on the back, I'm going to go ahead and put that sharper bevel on it. Okay, we have cut, we have beveled, now we're going to die. You die before you glue, because glue will affect the edges of your work and the dye won't stick or stain properly. It'll still stain, It just won't look nearly as good. So cover up my table. Put gloves on. I agree there, Freedom Bell. That was kind of a tough piece because we live so far away, and going off of the drawing, I wasn't able to get a good mold to it to see if the retention strap would have been necessary. I guess what I should have done is I could have put one on there and then just left you the option of cutting it off. That's what I should have done. Or you could have just continued to use it. But next time we meet up, we will get that taken care of for you. I'm glad that he loves the detail work on there. That was really fun to do. For the people that are interested in seeing Freedom Bell's holster, you can go to my Facebook page. It's Worthwhile Leather. And the shoulder holster that I'm wearing towards the top of that page will be his shoulder holster. Okay, dye. The customer wanted a dark brown dye, so that's what we are going to give him. Hopefully that's dark brown. They are, I checked them earlier. And you just apply this. This is a lot like staining wood. The more that you put on and the longer that you leave it, the darker it will get. So you got to go kind of fast, otherwise your brush strokes will show. And though some people will be like, oh, that means that it's handmade, well, that's fine and dandy. But some of us are striving for a professional look while keeping it handmade. What I'm doing now is I'm dyeing the edges of this. Work on these one at a time. Take a rag, dampen it, and then wipe the excess dye off. Flip the rag over to the dry side. Look at that color. Now you dyed the edges of it, so you got to get the edges too. like it. All right. That is the back piece. Look how that's turning out. We got a little bit down there that we got to buff out. Set that off to the side. Move on to the next piece. The outside piece. This is one that you got to really move on because this is a big showpiece. So, get plenty of dye on your brush. Make sure your brush strokes are nice and smooth and even. How is you and the family doing up there? Guys doing all right on quarantine or anything like that? Okay, we got the outside of it. Get the sides. You want to be careful when you're doing the sides because if you end up accidentally staining the inside a little bit, you got to turn around and stain the whole inside and then seal it. Keeping it natural. I missed a spot, so I'm going to have to gently pick it up. Make sure your coverage is good. Set it down. Take your cloth, dampen it again. Water's cheap. Dry it off. Try not to touch the face of your showpiece here because your fingerprints or glove prints will show up. Okay. Oh, almost forgot. Got to get the sides done. Sounds like my son finally took out the trash. There we go. Look at that. On lockdown, doing well, counting the blessings of healing and time with each other. Turkey season starts Monday. Yeah, ours started here last weekend. And Tiffany's had me doing so much yard work I haven't been able to think about going. Yeah, I've pretty much been on lockdown as well. So, I'm enjoying my time off. Alright. Look at how that holster is lining up perfectly. This is going to be a beautiful holster. Okay, now the glue. What we need to do is pull our pattern back. Just take a quick look at that stitch line, because we don't want to glue where the gun is going to go. Okay, we can do that. Just kind of look at it there on the holster, get your bearing. You don't have to glue right up to that cut line or that stitch line. You can leave it to where you feel safe on both sides, because that stitch line is what's going to be holding it. This is just extra. I use wood weld contact cement. Works great on leather. Just kind of apply it to the wings a little bit here. And then also run a little bit around this outside seam. Remember, you got about 1/4 of an inch to do. Set that off to the side. With contact cement, you let it dry for just a little bit. And then when these two pieces go together, stitching is actually a redundancy. But I don't trust glue by itself, and neither should you. There you go. Got it glued. That is enough of the glue. Our dyeing is done, so I am taking my gloves off. To the other viewer that we got as well, thank you for joining. Have any questions, drop in the chat. I'll be happy to read them off and answer them to the best of my ability. Or if you just want to say hi, that's fine too. If you like the content, please hit the like button. If you don't, I'll try not to lose any sleep over it tonight. Okay, we got it glued. We added the pressure to it. Now just for an extra little added measure, take a soft dead blow hammer. Pound around in that area where the glue is. That just gives it an added sense of being finished. Oh, looks like I lost my one viewer, extra viewer. Or they went back to watch. Let's see. Alrighty. Bringing back our pattern. Little scratch all to mark our stitch line in the leather. We need to know on the wings here where the stitch line needs to go. Okay, you can't see it on the stream, but I got a pretty good dotted line here that is going to show me where I need to punch my holes for stitching. I am going to take my stitch groover tool and I am going to groove out a line for the thread to sit in. Okay, now very carefully I'm going to stitch using this tool. I'm going to run this line. Got my tool turned around backwards. There we go. Got one little happy mistake right there that after I get done stitching it, punching the holes, that shouldn't be an issue. Alright, punching holes. I apologize for the racket that this is going to create, but can't make these holes quietly. So put some of these tools up so they don't rattle around as much. Forgot to put my edge groover back. Alright, where'd it run off to? get you up here somewhere. There you are. Yep. Alright, got a 2-prong for turning corners. All these, everybody always tells me, oh, that leather work must be hard work. Not really. It takes time, but it's not really hard work because there's all these different tools that make the work so much easier. You don't have to poke these holes with an awl like they had to back in the old days. You can just back to the 4. Gotta hit the 4 a little bit harder, but chews up ground a little bit faster. Back to the 2 for just a second. Get that corner in there. Sounds like we're about to get some neighbors. My wife's craft room is right next door. Did anybody else besides me notice how all those holes magically lined up at the end for just perfect corners and everything? That's the first time that's ever happened to me. Most of the time, one hole is a little bit longer from the others or a little bit closer together. That is the first time that those holes have magically lined up like that. All right. Streaming. So now for the thread, take it, you measure it all the way around. It doesn't have to be exact. That's, and then you multiply it by about 3 times. There's 2. There's 3. I actually go 3.5 because there is nothing worse than being in the middle of stitching a project and realize that you ran out of thread. Because then you got to back stitch and cut it off, and then restart your stitching and back stitch and forward stitch and back stitch for string so the string doesn't slip out or your stitching doesn't pop. So now I start at one of these top corners here. Always start from the back, that way you finish up on the back. This is going to be the boring part. We got about probably an hour or so of watching me pull string through a hole. So, if you don't want to stick around, I understand. It is coming together fast, except for now we're at the slow part, the stitching. And there ain't really any way to speed this up other than the sewing machine. But 2 things. I am not set up to video at my sewing machine. And 2, right now, me and my sewing machine are in a love-hate relationship. And right now, I am not liking it very much. I have no idea what it did right either, but that thread actually matches that leather dye job perfectly. I'm just getting all kinds of lucky today. What I do is I started at this top corner. I will go all the way around this wing till the 2 holes meet, and then I will back stitch along this wing again and go all the way down and around. When I come all the way down and around, I will bring it around here, down until they touch, and then I'll bring the back stitch back around the way I did, all the way back up, and I will finish back up at that hole with a double stitch on this whole thing. Using 1 piece of thread, no cutting, no splicing, for a superior stitch. Yes, it does. Once this is all put together, I will put the 1911 in, get it to shape just a little bit, pull the 1911 out, soak the leather in water, put the 1911 in again. I broke my vacuum seal, so that means I get to hand press all the detail into the holster. All in all, the different tools that you've seen me use so far on this video, if you're interested in getting into leather work, I'm making this holster right now, and I got a total of maybe $25, $30 in tools that I've used. And most of that is actually coming from those forked hole punches that I used. I think those are like $7 a piece. I wish my kids wanted to get into this a little bit more, because then I could just pass this off to them and be like, okay, sweatshop time. I apologize. This is one of the bad things with live streaming these videos, is when I have to hand stitch. It is the slowest, dullest part. So feel free to add comments in the chat and we'll talk about it. I can't wait for deer season to get here. I need to look into learning how to tan my own hides. That way when I get a deer this year, I can tan the hide and make some leather products out of that. Maybe make some deer line moccasins. Exactly. Quality assurance while I sit back and sip on lemonade while the kids are doing the stitching. Now, also for anybody who's bearing with me so far through this video, I've looked into the brain tanning a little bit. My biggest problem with brain tanning is the amount of time it takes. I don't always have time to do the different rotations and stretches and all that stuff that brain tanning requires. But anybody that has bared with me this long into the video, If you have any questions about the holster or how to make one of these holsters, and I am no longer on live stream at that time, feel free to jump onto my Facebook page, Worthwhile Leather, and leave a comment there or message me there from Worthwhile Leather, and I'll get back to you. I am happy to share all the knowledge that I have with anybody that is willing to listen. I get my leather mostly up at a Mennonite community called Muddy Pond, and the leather worker up there, very nice guy, very knowledgeable, has been doing this forever. I go up there and I get an education every time I see him. So, why should one person hoard all the knowledge? Share it. Nobody's going to be cutting into your business work or anything like that, because, to be honest, I always have an order that I got to fulfill. Now, sometimes it slows down, but I have never been completely out of work. Or if I have, it's only been for a day or two. And this is just a little side job hobby anyway, so if you're liking the content, or at least the instructional on this, I know it's a little boring right now, be sure to hit the like button. If you don't hit the like button, well, like I said before, I won't lose any sleep over it. Sorry, I keep pulling this away from the camera as I'm stitching. I know. Guys are tired of looking at the workbench. Actually, give me 1 second here. We'll see how this goes. You guys can look at me instead. Alright, where's it? Alright. That one was a little tough getting through there. There we go. They do got branding irons. You can actually use, go to Hobby Lobby and the wood burning tools. You can use those and that will burn leather as well. And you can do all kinds of art with the burning. I am not an artist, so I rely on the laser and computer programs. How did some of these not go through? Or am I just an idiot? And we're stitching. I'm not even halfway done. Still stitching. How we on length of the video? We're a little over an hour. I'm very pleased with how this is turning out so far. The return stitch will go a little bit faster. I won't have to find the holes on the back. If my sewing machine was up, this would have been done half hour ago. A couple minutes after I started. Right now, for the two people watching, if anybody has to use the bathroom, this would be a good time because there's nothing fun or exciting that's going to happen for the next 30 minutes. Unless Chris says something in the chat that leaves me laughing, and then I poke myself in the finger, and then we can talk about that. How many times have I stabbed myself in the finger doing this, you might ask? I'm not at liberty to discuss such sensitive information. However, I can tell you that I have drawn blood on almost every project I've done. So far, this one here is going rather well. I know I just jinxed myself, but I have not bled yet. And I'd like to try and keep it that way. I've made it all the way over here to the trigger guard. I have not stitched around the wing yet. I'm going to go up, follow the tracing all the way around, come back down. Once I hit this hole down here, then I'm coming back all the way down and around and up. So we're real close to the halfway point in the stitching process. You know, I've thought about doing that as far as the series from deer to finished product, both recipe, cooking, and also say a pair of leather moccasins or something like that. I want to get better at my tanning before I start giving instructionals on how to do it. And if Band-Aid would like to sponsor me, that would be great, because I could definitely use the Band-Aids. Also, when you're stitching, When I started out with that big long string, it has taken me a couple of pulls per stitch, and that takes time. Now I am down to one pull of the string, though I gotta throw my arms way out there. And that speeds it up as well. The less string that you got to pull through, the faster you go. If anybody is wondering where I learned how to do this, I've mentioned it in several of my videos. Weaver Leathercraft with Chuck Dorset gives some great instructional videos that will really, if you're interested in this, will really fire you up about getting different projects done. Watching him do stuff is amazing. However, a bunch of his videos are instructionals, they're how-tos. He has very few videos about why or unless something's changed, he doesn't talk about his tools all that much. His were the first videos that I watched that got me interested in leatherworking. Don Gonzalez Saddlery is another one that really teaches you a bunch about the hand tooling of leather, where you put your little roses and your flower designs and all that stuff in there. He's very good with that stuff. If you want to get into armor series, Prince Armory has some great instructional videos, and also they sell the patterns to their armor set, so you can buy the pattern and make you a full set of armor. His instructionals are very good, shows you step-by-step process on how to do it. And his work is very impressive. Okay, this last stitch right here met with the first stitch that came around the trigger guard. So now that I'm at that point, I'm going back around this top wing and then going to come down around the trigger guard. That will give me my double stitch for that whole piece. I know it's weird watching a bald goateed man sitting down sewing by hand. But leather work is really nothing more than jumping in, gaining a little bit of experience, and coming up with your own design. Whenever we go into a store somewhere, I am always looking at different things on how it's made and how I would make it. And sometimes I gather inspiration for different projects by doing that. I'm not 100% sure, but one thing I hate about the hand stitching is I should have had enough to do this whole thing. I think I'm going to run short just a little bit. If I don't, there's not going to be much left over, which is great for no waste. But I hate finishing up a project when I am literally using the last inch and a half of thread. I am now working down around where the trigger guard is. We're going to be close. How are we doing on time? We're an hour and a half in. Yeah, this will finish up right around the 2-hour mark. Hands are getting tired. I don't think we're going to make it. That's enough to upset a person. All right, so when you're pulling your string out trying to measure it, I went 3.5 times. Be on the safe side, go 4. So, seeing that I'm going to be short, I will back stitch along this bottom again. And that will make this bottom seam super tight. Go ahead and stop it there. I'll leave that up for right now. Now, when you know that you're going to be short and you got to add more thread, I made it to right there. I back stitched up to make sure that seam stays strong. I'm going to start my stitching right about there, go up, back up a little bit, and then restitch again. That way, my seam, my stitching seam will stay strong. A lot of people won't start at a proper place because they don't want to put a little bit extra work in, because it does get tight to stitch. And their seams will be weak. Now I'm going to go ahead and go forward and finish. The more thread that you put through one hole, the tighter the needle is. And I can't find my pliers. Sometimes a pair of needle nose pliers is a dream. Almost finished with the stitching. Whoever the second viewer is, thank you for joining us. You have picked it up right back at the right time. I am just finishing a long hand stitching job. Actually, literally getting ready to move on. Alrighty. The slow part is done. So, excuse the camera work here for a second while I get everything back in order. Okay, getting stuff back in order here. Let's fix our camera view. There it goes. Alrighty. Sorry about that. Now, for our thread that we just trimmed, we're going to go ahead and singe the ends. Got to do it down here where we had to restart our thread. Oh, my wife was the second viewer. Well, at least she hit the like button. Okay, now we got all the threading done. Gonna set the thread, and this just makes it lay down flat. Alright, there's the holster and most of its part. Here's this beautiful 1911. I love this gun. This is one of my favoriteest guns in the world, and I have never even shot one. Get it started. Get it in there. Don't be afraid to use a little bit of force to get it down in there, all nice and tight. Look at how that gun fits in there. That is a beautiful holster. Everything's all covered up back here. Get it in there nice and good. Look at that fit. Now that we've got the gun in there nice and secured, we have to form fit it. Alrighty, form fitting it. We're going to wet form this. No, we're not going to submerge the whole thing in there and let it dry. Pull the gun back out. Now we'll submerge or get the whole entire leather wet. I had more water down here, but this will do. By getting the leather wet, we're going to be able to form it around the gun, and then as it dries, you'll be able to shape it. Don't be afraid to use a lot of water at this point. Let it get wet. You could submerge it. However, I didn't have enough water out here to do that without soaking it all up. This will work just as good. Give it a couple minutes for that water to soak in. You can tell it's soaking in by when all the wet spots that you can see on there are gone. Now, place the 1911 back in your holster. Nice and tight. Don't be afraid to push on it. This is a bone shaping tool. Has a rounded end, kind of flexes around, then it has a pointed end. The 1911 has that ejection port. Just kind of fill around with your thumb till you find it. And then start pressing that ejection port. The metal of the gun will give you your crease line. And then find where the slide meets. And just start pressing on the tool. As you're pressing down, it will find all the little creases and divots that you want. There's the trigger. The crease of the gun. The sights. Just apply pressure all over. There's the slide. Magazine release button right there. You can see how everything is starting to take shape. The form is still kept. Nothing wrong with the pistol. I love this gun. Pistol goes in nice and tight. as you roll it and shape it. You get that beautiful distressed leather look. Now, when you're making these, you don't have to have the wings go out so far. You can customize it however you want. In fact, with that pattern, I'll probably trim this side off just a little bit. The last thing that we got to do is, people are probably wondering, well, how do you attach it to your belt? Well, you got to cut belt loops in it. And just as soon as I find my die for that, and we'll show you what I mean. Where did all those go? Okay, well, we're going to go about this a little bit different way. If you don't have a set of dies for cutting this, what you can do is you can use your hole punch and punch a couple of holes. There they are. Okay, what I was talking about, you could punch a hole, and then using a straight edge and your utility knife, cut the slit to do it, to make your belt slots. However, I am fortunate enough that I have this awesome little die set. There's one belt loop. Now for the other. Sorry for the noise. I know. Voila. Put the pistol in its holster and leave it alone for a little bit. That will allow the leather to fully dry. This holster is pretty much finished. I can turn around and take this bone shaping tool. I can wallow that out a little bit. Kind of smooth it down. Same with this. But there is a 1911 holster that I am about to try on. Don't make fun of how fat I am. Now, for the big reveal, there you go. I like it. Go back to the... All right. So, I thank those of you that have joined us while I was going over this today. I appreciate it. You were part of the live stream. Thank you. And this holster today was a giveaway. And I'm standing too close to the camera like an idiot. And for the giveaway today, what we're having to do is I was going to run off of the live chat. So, Freedom Bell. I'm not sure if I still have your address from your last order or not. But if you would, please shoot me a text or an email with your address. You were the one that stayed with me through this, made the comments in the chat. So, and you also happen to have a 1911 that I believe that this will fit. So, you have won the holster. Shoot me a text or an email with your address, and I will get that into the mail to you just as soon as I can. Everybody else, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, look me up on Facebook, Worthwhile Leather, WIRTH. Shoot me your question. I'll be more than happy to give the best answer that I can. Hopefully, I can help you out. If there's anything that you'd like to see me do on my next video, guys, leave a comment down below, and thank you for joining me.